Chris, thanks for joining me once again on the show. Let everybody know who you are and what you're about.
All right, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. My name is Chris Pendas. I am the founder of Staying Safe LLC, formerly known as Staying Safe SelfDefense. I'm mostly known for my violence breakdowns on my Instagram and some of the articles I've written on my website. I started off in martial arts as a kid, growing up, some traditional martial arts in and out growing up until I really turned and evolved into boxing before I joined the Marine Corps, where I became a martial arts instructor. After the Marine Corps, I got out, I did some contracting, some anti-piracy stuff, protecting cargo vessels in the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa, some executive protection, where I was a regional defensive tactics instructor. Um, Currently, I work for Overseas Buildings Operations, a bureau within the Department of State as a security specialist, focusing my training mostly on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where I coach and teach as a brown belt.
Very good, sir. So you have some experience around the globe and around the country with teaching people how to be safer, and I'm sure you've had to use some of your instructions for yourself over the years. And I won't ask you any of those questions because I'm pretty sure it's classified stuff. But thank you for being on the show. I'm glad you brought up your Instagram because the other day you posted something that just annoys me so much, and it annoys you too. You were at a gas pump and one of those ads started playing. Why, other than just to annoy the people at the gas pump, why is it so bad that these ads are playing when we're at the gas station?
Well, firstly, like you said, it's super annoying. You just like they're showing these celebrities. You're like, I've never heard of this person before.
Yeah,
What
me
is
neither.
this? And random ads about stuff I don't even know what's going on.
uh,
Besides that point, it's a distractor. They're
mhm.
usually really loud because there's cars going, so they have the volume set up really loud, and it kind of takes away from your ability to see what's going on around you. Pay attention using all your senses. It might distract you. Maybe you're like, wait, who is this? And get sucked into something, and then now you're not paying attention to anything around you. So turning those off really it helps keep me like focused on like especially if you have your family with you in the car like I do sometimes. Like I want to be vigilant and make sure that nobody's approaching the car from somewhere else or anything like that. I can at least hear footsteps, or I can hear maybe a car screeching, maybe they lost control or something. I can pay
Right.
attention to what's going on around me.
Very good. And by the way, I did not know that you could cut those ads off. So you really did teach me something there with that Instagram video. So I'm going to be doing that the next time I go to the pump, and just instead of just, I would actually just sit and walk, or I would sit, make sure that the gas pump was going, and then I would just walk around my vehicle and just kind of, I can't sit here and be distracted by this thing. So it's good to know that you can actually cut those things off. You talked about being out with your family and having them with you. What are some what are some other issues that we face when we are at gas stations?
Well, as you're aware, like gas stations are transitional spaces. So it means there's a lot of people coming and going from there. So it's really easy for somebody to pick a spot, sit down and observe and just wait for the right target. They can pick the target that's distracted, that's paying attention to the ad maybe, or they're just not in the right mindset to be, headspace to be protecting themselves. So they can sit there and wait for that perfect target and then go and execute that attack, or even if it's something as simple as panhandling, they can wait for somebody they
Uh,
see and then approach you and catch you off guard, and then now you're like in a state of like shock, like whoa, where'd you come from? Yeah, here, just give me some money, go away, and you
mhm.
may not normally act like that. So yeah, transitional spaces will uh definitely pose a threat there. So in that aspect where somebody can sit there and observe, they can get their baseline, they can do all the things that we would want to do when we're doing our situational awareness, but for the opposite goal. So paying attention in that area and turning those off is definitely a first step. And not all of them play those ads either. So every once in a while I'll get to one that plays it and I'm like, oh yeah, right side, second one down, boop, turn it off.
Very cool. And I know in those spaces too, they are transitional. So it's not unusual to see people coming and going, and for people to be sometimes loitering. Maybe they just got a scratch off ticket or something like that. So I really think what I have to remember when I'm in these spaces, as a good law abiding citizen, I have to realize nobody is actually really in control of that area, right? Yeah, there's employees who kind of have some level of authority, but these people aren't going to come save you if you're getting attacked, right?
Oh, absolutely. Most of the time they're back behind their counter, and they don't even know what's going on. They don't have the cameras right in front of them. I actually used to work at a convenience store before I joined the military. My uncle owned a
Okay.
convenience store, and the front counter, we had cameras and everything, but the cameras weren't where you could watch them all the time. They're in the back office. So yeah,
Mm.
you may have had cameras around the building, but it's not like the employees right there being able to even look at that happening in some cases. So yeah, I wouldn't expect it. Actually, in any scenario, I would always plan to be your own first responder. So having that in the forefront of your mind, especially in places where there is no control over it. It's common for people to come and go, loiter for a little bit, move on about their day, come back. They might visit 4 or 5 times. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you brought up. I'm so glad you brought up the thing about the surveillance cameras because I feel like, and you probably meet people like this all the time, who put so much faith in those cameras that one, they're actually working, and two, that somebody's watching it, and this person who's magically watching this camera is going to call 911 for you if you get in trouble. And usually those cameras are there to make sure that whoever owns the property doesn't get sued for something. So I kind of always feel like, yes, there are cameras and yes, they play a role, but they're passive, right? They're not actually going to actively save you.
Right. Yeah. In most cases, like especially in a commercial business that is like a chain or something like that, it's just a standard CCTV,
Mhm.
where it may not even have a DVR where it's recording. It may not even be. I mean, most of them come standard nowadays with some type of recording device, but you don't know what it's set to. Maybe it's 24 hours, maybe it's 30 days. You don't know what their storage is,
Right.
and most of the time, CCTV is really only good for investigative purposes after the fact, after there's been a crime committed, something's happened. It's not really it's a preventive measure to say, oh look, you're on camera, so don't do anything bad because we're going to know
Mhm.
who you are. But
Right.
nowadays everybody has to wear a face mask. They're walking around like, the other day my daughter, we were walking, we're going to go for a walk or something, and she had a face mask on, and then she had goggles on too, sunglasses. I was like, what are you going to go rob a bank? What's going on here,
Uh-huh.
but that's common now. So even using that as an anomaly on your baseline is no longer an anomaly, because now it's kind of formed into our culture over the last year, or worldwide, whatever, where it's common to see something like that. So you see somebody wearing a mask, you're not really, hey, let me pay attention to this person anymore. So it kind of puts you at a little bit more of a relaxed state when maybe their other actions show they might have some other intent. But going back to the question, yeah, absolutely. The cameras are not, most of the time, even if there's a security personnel, like they have other things they're doing. They're not staring at a camera. It's literally impossible for like even an 8-hour shift to like stare at a camera and be like analyze. You're gonna burn out. Try and watch your favorite, Lord of the Rings, the series or something, all the way through. You're like, I gotta turn
Right.
this off and go for a walk. It's the same
Right.
thing. You can't be so tuned in. So as a preventive measure, it's mostly just as a threat to say, look, you're on camera. But in the end, it's going to be, especially at a commercial business like a transitional space or something like that, they're not sitting there waiting, maybe, at Federal Reserve. I'm sure those
Yeah,
security
yeah,
officers
yeah.
are
There's
looking,
some places that are, right.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, but they have an entire team dedicated to it. The 7-Eleven does not. So,
Exactly.
right. So, we were talking about overlooking things. What do you feel is an aspect of personal safety that a lot of people just overlook?
I think like when we're talking about, a lot of times you'll hear things like, oh, I never put my back to the door. And like they have these, and these are like rules of thumb. And I think it's kind of like generally speaking, never put your back to the door, but it's not really the intent of what, in my opinion, it's not really the intent of what I'm trying to do. What I'm really trying to do is position myself or put myself in an advantageous position that allows me to observe the areas of high foot traffic or high activity coming and going. So it may not necessarily be the front door, it might be the side door, or it might be by the restrooms, or it might be where the kitchen is coming out. So one of the biggest things I see people do is they kind of get sucked into this like this sense of, oh, I'm don't put my back to the door, this is my hard rule, never back to the door. And it's like, well, no, if you think about it, there's multiple angles of, the back door, the front door is, yeah, it's the easiest way in and anybody can come that way. But how many times is the back door open and nobody's there and nobody can see somebody come in because they just took out the trash or they're waiting for a delivery? If I had some ill intent, any smart person, I'm not going to go through the front door. I'm going to come through the back. I'll go through the kitchen, take out all the people, if I want to
Right,
rob it or
right.
whatever
You
the
want to
intent
leverage
is.
that surprise, right?
Exactly, exactly. So knowing where your avenues of approach are, and positioning yourself to where you can see the high traffic areas, which is like the bathroom, the kitchen, coming out of the kitchen where they're coming, the servers are going to come bring the food, the front door, maybe the side door, depending on, the restaurant or the place
Mhm.
you're going, the 7-Eleven. A lot of times in a place like a 7-Eleven, I see people, the cashiers, right here, the line is going this way, but everybody's facing towards the wall because they're looking at stuff or they're looking at this. But why wouldn't you be looking forward to where everything's coming towards you? Like you're like,
Mhm.
oh,
Right.
look at the food in the rack. The impulse buys where they get you while you're waiting in line.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at all this stuff instead of like focusing on, okay, these are my high risk areas, right? The front door obviously is the biggest one. Knowing where the back, like the setup. Oh, I know the back storage is on the back right. Just paying attention to these types of things rather than just mindlessly like, oh man, this guy's buying 15 lotto tickets today. Geez, what's going on? So things like that. I think that's a big issue that people can easily correct, is just looking for those high approach areas.
Right. I feel like sometime with my show, and I know that I just have a podcast. You have actually educated people face to face for a long time. Do you ever feel like, in some of the stuff that you share, especially with new folks, do you think there's like this stigma against people being situationally aware? That there's a stigma against self defense that,
Yeah.
oh gosh, why would I do that? That sort
I
of thing.
I get the biggest thing I get is people on the, like, you're like, hey, just pay attention, be aware of what's going on. People go, well, you can't be turned on all the time. What do you think, I'm a robot? And I'm like, but that's not what I said. I'm
Right.
like, listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying just be aware. And the biggest thing that their aha moment, like when I'm teaching or I'm explaining to somebody, their aha moment in that is when I go, well, when you're more aware, you're also enjoying more of what you're doing because you're more aware of what's happening. You're not sucked into like one little thing. Like you're walking around with my kids and I'm like looking around and then I see like a beautiful tree, or I'm like, I see something that like we just talked about. Oh, we just talked about pine cones. Hey, look at that pine cone over there. You
Uh-huh.
you actually have a better experience. It doesn't mean that I have to be like like looking around and I'm like doing forward rolls across the street, like that's
Right.
not what we're
Right.
saying. We're just saying don't get sucked into walking with your phone. Like I saw a video the other day and it was really, really sad. It was lady walking on her phone and then a guy's backing up with a I can't
Oh,
remember
the
if it was an
backhoe?
excavator. Yeah, the backhoe, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was just like, oh my God. Like all you had to do was just look up for one split second and the consequence was great. I mean, I don't know what the end result was, but looking at the video, it didn't look too good. So
Right.
was whatever you were looking at so important? Actually, I've gotten really, really good at like walking and texting without looking at my phone, just
Uh-huh.
doing this and using auto. And I mean, I send a lot of dumb texts because it always doesn't work out. But
Right.
if there's something I really need to answer, or if like maybe I'm walking my kids and and my wife's like, hey, while you're at the store, grab this. I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get that, no problem. But I'm not staring at my phone. I'm like walking and texting. And if I send something dumb, she's like, yep, that's the guy I married. He can't even spell whatever.
Right. Oh, yeah, just autocorrect. It's always
Yeah.
Siri's fault. It's never my fault. It's always Siri's fault.
Always, always.
Oh gosh, talking about, being in the grocery store and that kind of stuff. You're a dad, I'm a dad, we always get caught up being in public with stuff like making sure our kids aren't licking the shopping carts and that sort of thing. So what is it that we as distracted parents can do to make sure that we can really take in what's going on around us?
The biggest thing for me is like I always try to. I take when I'm out with my family, whether it's just my wife, which never happens anymore with all our with all our kids,
Right.
but with the kids and everything, I always position myself as if I'm walking like body coverage, like when I
Hmm.
like. So I'm always a little slight, like my preferred, obviously depending on your client and things like that, but my preferred position is slightly behind and a little bit adjacent to them.
Hmm.
Um, and it depends on where I perceive the vulnerability being. If there's a cliff or there's the handrail looks really shady on this side, I'm going to be on the left side. If we're walking past the street and the left side is looking pretty good, there's nothing out there, it's just a flat field or whatever, I'm going to be on the right side. If I'm walking past an alleyway or a store or something like that, I just maneuver myself back and forth. And a lot of times I use that as like a way to guide like as I'm moving, I'll move to one side and push my kid, like, hey, give me your hand, and
Mhm.
kind of like maneuver them to put myself in between there. I think taking an approach like that for me really allows me to be cognizant of what's happening, because I'm always looking forward and bouncing back. So I'm like, I'm projecting, I'm seeing these things, and then I'm like, boom, boom. It's kind of like a radar, like boop, 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 come back, boop, boop. And you're just like going back and forth, and I'm looking forwards, backwards. I'm not doing all, crazy, but
Right, right, right.
being aware of the moment, and like, you see what's going on. I see somebody approaching, and I'm like, okay, this person is approaching, I'm going to go on the side that they're approaching, and that way I can, if something's there, I can move fast enough to get to in front of my child or my wife or whoever they're first approaching, and just kind of like position myself maneuvering back and forth, and that really helps me stay focused. Because I'm always moving, right? I'm always like assessing, and then it allows me to be more into the moment. Like we were walking a couple days ago, and my daughter wants to play. Like they got this one like road, has a bunch of trees on it, and
Mhm.
so it's like that's like the enchanted forest, or the
Mhm.
magic forest where we go down, and there's somebody walking along the other way, because a lot of people go running and stuff. So she wants to run and play, So like maneuvering myself and just kind of like staying as a barrier as we walk past each other. No big deal. They weren't up to anything. They're just running, but keeping that in mind. And then she's like, "Hey, Dad, you see the we call them naked trees because they don't have leaves." So I'm like,
All
"Yeah,
right.
yeah, they're just naked trees." she's like, "Look at the naked trees, whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And it kind of like brings into the moment, like I'm looking forward. I see the lady, then I see the tree, and then we're talking about it, and I'm just maneuvering myself as the person's coming. It just kind of brings it all together for me. I mean, that's what works for me. Being able to bounce between bounce between objectives back and
Mhm.
forth really quickly always helps. I mean, it just takes practice, but you don't have to be like, like we talked about a little bit ago. You're so sucked in, and I'm like, there's a person, there's a person, there's a person. Like a dog who's like just stuck at the door, like
Right.
you know it's just staying focused that way, bouncing back and forth, and kind of having these little trigger points for myself really helps me.
Right. What I hear you saying is that you make a habit out of doing this stuff. So no matter like how bad of a day you've had, you're going to position yourself in the same place and you're going to put yourself in the same place so that you can be successful if something does go wrong. Just that just starts getting built into your DNA, right?
Yeah, and it definitely took a long time to of practice to do
Mhm.
this.
Sure, yeah.
When me and my wife first got married 10 years ago, where we were I
Good
remember
call
one day
there.
we
You remembered. Very good.
yeah. Well, we got married on Christmas, so it's not that it's not that
Oh,
difficult
hey, you
to
always
remember.
know your
So
oh, very good.
there, yeah, see, yeah. Modern problems require modern solutions.
That's there you go.
No, but I remember when we first got together, I was kind of still developing my own processes for myself on how to think. So I was way over analyzing things, and I was
Yeah.
missing a lot of
Yeah.
like the other parts of it. So I remember one time we were at a gas station, or we were driving past a gas station, the red light happens, and it wasn't a really great part of town. We're at the red light, and then when we drive off, she was like, "Hey, did you see that cute dog?" And I was like, "What cute dog?" She's like, "Oh, Mr. Awareness can't find."
Yes.
And I was like, "Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but did you see the homeless guy sitting on the ice chest staring at us on the corner?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah." But in the like it we both missed the important things, because it's
Mhm.
important to see the other things as well, not just the safety things, because I got so honed in, and I was like,
Mhm.
there's a threat. I was that dog, like, there he is, let me at him, rather than being like, okay, there's a threat, he's far enough away, like making
Mhm.
mitigations, planning for myself.
Right.
Okay, I'm good to go. I don't have to be so tuned in. You see something that, I can't say it was a threat or not. I can say there was an
It wa
anomaly there,
yes, an anomaly. Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't have to get sucked into the anomaly. I can just see it, recognize it, understand what there may be my vulnerabilities. It's turning green anyway. I don't have to be sucked into it. I can do the rest of the things. So
Mhm.
I missed out on seeing a cute dog, unfortunately. So,
Oh,
uh,
gosh. And you never have seen a cute dog again, I'm sure. That was the
yeah.
only one ever. Oh, well. What I get a lot is, people will say, "Yeah, I saw you in traffic and I waved and you didn't, wave back." And I was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I was too busy driving."
Right, right.
I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute. Aren't you supposed to be situationally aware?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was of the car in front of me, which was the most important thing at the time." So yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing. People would be like, "Well, you can't be tuned on," and I'm like, "I know." Like one time I was riding the metro to work, one of my buddies that I used to train with, he lived in the same building. He was on the metro, but he was a couple seats down, and I didn't see him. And I was like texting on my phone or scrolling or something like that. And he took a picture of me and then texted to me. And I looked up. I said, "Oh, this son of a gun." As he caught me. And
Yeah,
then you know what I did? I immediately went to my Instagram and posted it and said,
I
"Look,
remember
I
that.
got caught slipping. This
Hmm.
happens to everyone.
Yep.
Nobody's perfect. It is what it is. Let me be honest with you. If I was like hiding it, like, oh no, don't send that. No, no, no. This is the reality. So when people come at me on my Instagram posts and they're like, you can't be aware all the time. I'm like, I know. Go scroll like 3 months down on this thing, and you're going to see a
Hmm.
post of me not being aware. It
Right.
happens. It is what it
Hmm.
is. Nobody's perfect. Recognize that, accept it, and just enjoy your life. Pay attention to the good things. Do your best to catch the bad things, or the potential bad things. So,
Right. Yusuf Badu, he runs Emergence
yep.
Disrupt. Yeah, awesome guy. I heard him in his training talk about the human brain has pretty much a budget for attention. And if it's $100 budget and you burn through $90 of that attention budget by 5 o'clock, you only got $10 to spend for the rest of the day. And like it runs out after a while. And I
Mhm.
always think that's a really good way to look at it because we are human. Our energy is depleting unless we're taking an afternoon nap or something like that. And we're not going to be perfect all the time, which is why I like your talking about safe habits and being in the right place and putting yourself into the situation where you can be successful. So because, we're not perfect. It's not ever going
Right.
to be that way. That's cool.
And there's
Um
there's times where somebody has we were going on vacation, and we were driving, and we stopped at like a Walmart or something, and we're dealing with the kids in the car. We got two kids. One's a year old. One's 5 years old. Well, she says double five. She's 5.5. So let me just be very clear in case she hears this later on. You're
right.
5.5. Got it.
Right.
And a guy, I'm dealing with this when I kind of see something, like approaching, but I think it's somebody going this way. I couldn't really tell because I'm looking through the car, and it's a homeless guy. Calls out to my wife. He's like, "Hey, can you buy me some clothes?" My wife's like, "What are you doing?" "No." Like, "What?" And I'm like, "Okay, time to move." So we get her ready to go. I move the car because I'm like, I don't know where this guy is going with this. I don't, you just
Mhm.
denied him something he wanted. I'm not gonna stay here. We had all of our stuff in the car. I was like, no, we'll walk to the front. You guys go to the front. I'll go move the car, and we'll come back. We'll circle around.
Mhm. Mhm.
But even in that case, I see something. I can't, you have to make a decision, right? Do I stay here and finish with my daughter, or do I leave and close the door? Do I leave and walk around and see if we look at our past experiences and our file folders in our mind, and we go, when I see this action, this is typically what it is. But you're not
Mhm.
always right, and
No,
sometimes
right.
based on your
Right.
your field of view, what's obstructing your view, looking through multiple layers of glass, whatever, you're not always going to be right, and that's okay. But understanding how you're going to respond to those situations ahead of time is really going to help you. So if I know, somebody, I'm always going to be like, no, hey, say no, I don't, it's okay, we're good. One guy, actually, another time on the same trip, a guy asked me, he came and said, hey, I'm having this problem, can you give me, some money? And I'm like, okay, just stay right there. I don't have any money on me, but I'm dealing with my stuff. Can you just give me some space and time, and I'll see. I got to go to my room and see if I have something, just stay over there, and then separate myself. I don't let them know, hey, I need a little bit of distance. I'm like, oh, you don't have your mask on, bro. Trying to use whatever I can to maintain that distance. So he's like, oh no, I understand. Let me just scoot back. He's like, it was a whole weird thing. He was like, I'll give you the
Mhm.
smartwatch. I was like, nah, man, just leave me alone. It was super
Right.
weird, but
Yeah.
you get the idea, right?
Oh, yeah.
You try to leverage what, I have a plan thing in my, yeah, hey, I understand what you're asking for. Give me a little bit of time, space. Let me see. I'll get back to you. Or no, I don't have anything. Can you please just, leave me alone, or whatever the case may be, the best response for yourself would be.
Right. And it's funny you brought the whole thing about your friend taking your picture and sending it to you and being talking to somebody who's homeless. I actually did an entire podcast on how I failed at a close conversation I was having with a homeless man who wanted me to buy a bus ticket. And like I completely lost track of where his hands were and all sorts of stuff. And it was just, oh man, I completely messed up. But I was also like, I've got to tell people that I messed up because it's going to happen. Learn from my mistake here and, just to create some distance. What I have found is generally if somebody like comes up to you and they're making a pitch for you to give money, just like and say, "Hey man, I don't have a whole lot of money myself here. There's nothing I can do for you." Just say, "Hey
Yep.
friend, there's nothing I can do for you, but you have a great day." Don't be rude about it
Of
because,
course. Yeah.
chances are they already know if you're going to give them money or not by the time they've got the third word out of their mouth. And they're not going to spend any more time trying to con you if you're not going to give them any money. So just be nice about it. Say, "Hey, there's nothing I can do," and go on. But then again, you often sometimes come across that one really weird person, that is just not going to listen to you. But
Persistence.
yeah, that they're
I
persistent.
remember several. I mean, this was like 2008 or something like that. I was in Thailand and for some training, and I was like walking down the street on like going to get something to eat or something, and they got all these vendors. Hey, sir, 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 sir.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
was like trying to be nice. I remember I was like, listen, I understand what you're doing. There's a 0% chance that I'm going to buy anything from you. Like, you're wasting your time on me, but there's probably 10 other guys here or tourists who are going to buy whatever you want to give them.
Hmm.
Just don't waste your time. And I found it really frustrating because no one of them would listen to me. They're like, no, but come see my store. I'm
Right.
like, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
100%. I am not going to buy anything. You got a 0%
Hmm.
chance, bro. Like, it's not happening.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I can totally see, a panhandler or something like that, especially if they're not quite there. They're
Right.
maybe having some other issues, some substance abuse or some mental
Right.
issues.
Right.
They take things the wrong way. I have a story about that I'll share with you later, some other time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've got one too.
it
So
was very
yeah.
wild. Yeah, it was.
That's awesome. All right, so I did a podcast on this, and I really want your take on this. What is, I get asked by parents a lot, um, what what is it that we can do as parents to make sure that our kids are safe when we're not around? And that's a huge question. I did a podcast on it. I'd really like to know what your answer is to that question.
Yeah, this is really difficult because it really depends on like your kid's age, their maturity level, their ability, their cognitive ability to understand problems. Are they below their maturity level for their age? Are they above? It's really difficult, but I think the approach that we take, and I think that the most valuable approach is to just be honest with them and
Mhm.
tell them, look, there are people who are bad and they're going to do things. They want to do bad things to other people, and that includes children. I know that everybody in your life is loving and everybody wants to play and have fun, but not every adult is like that, and they're going to use that as a way to get you and to try to do something bad to you. So and giving them some kind of examples. Hey, oh, I lost my puppy. Can you come help me? Hey, I have this candy. Or hey, oh, you like that sandbox? I have a sandbox in my house that's way bigger, and then saying, you know what, if it just doesn't feel right, it may sound fun and appeasing, and it may sound like something you want to do, but it's just, you should never, listen to somebody when they're trying to pull you to another location. If
Mhm.
that's a problem, go to the person that you trust, because chances are, if they're not with me, they're with my wife or one of my best friends or one of my training partners, somebody. The other day I was at the gym training. I bring my daughter with me, and especially when we have like open mats or like or practice sessions and stuff like that. We're practicing, and then I kind of keep an eye on her, and she went into the training area, and one of my buddies has he has a movement company over there, and he does some really awesome stuff, and he had a couple clients, and then like she wasn't where I last saw her when I went from teaching to this, and then so I'm like, all right guys, pair together, and I start looking, even though it's all the doors are locked, I know,
Mhm.
doesn't matter. I can't see. So I go around, and then like I'm looking and I don't see her over there. And my buddy goes, no, she's right here. I got you, bro. We're good. And I'm like, I know that you surround her with people that she can trust, and you can kind of like fall back on that. So knowing that she's like, oh, I got Uncle Mike, I got Uncle Matt, I got Uncle Angelo, and she's just naming off all of these guys that aren't really uncles, but they're just people that she spends a lot of time with.
That's
The
awesome.
people at the gym, and so it creates uh, a an ability for her to see, okay, I can trust these people. I don't know these people, and I can see a difference when somebody like in a public space is like, hey, oh, your hair looks so nice. You're such you cute girl.
Mhm.
She's like, or
Right.
somebody at the gym's like, she's like, oh, and she just starts telling them, I'm 5'5" and I got this
Mhm.
and I got, and she's doing all these, very
Mhm.
open, and you can. So I think being honest and then letting them know who they can trust and that other people outside the circle they can't trust. You don't know
Mhm.
them. they're offering you something, they want to take you somewhere, don't do any of that stuff. If that happens, go to the person you trust, and from there we'll handle it together, you know.
Mhm.
I think that's really kind of the best approach, and it's very similar to online, right? Like where you have like, I did the online predator thing a few years ago, where it's like,
Mhm.
just be
Mhm.
honest with them and let
Great
them know,
series.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think that goes from digitally to the real world as well. Just be honest, and you don't have to show, you know, a lot of times I've had, you know, friends of family and friends of friends say, hey, I'd really like you to teach my daughter some of the stuff you do, or teach my kids. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't think it's appropriate for me to do that based on the content that I teach, because let's keep their innocence for a little bit, you know, like,
Right.
but
Right.
you don't have to be graphic. You don't have to show them some crazy stuff, you know, like, hey, watch this video. This is why you pay attention. No, no, no. You just let them know, you know,
Yeah.
that's just not
Yeah.
the right approach. Let's keep their innocence for a little bit and let them enjoy
Mhm.
their childhood.
Right.
But be honest and open that there are things out there, there are people out there that want to hurt them. And the world is a dangerous place, but we live in a society that try to minimizes that. And on the surface, it's very, it's not very apparent that there are bad things out there in most cases, depending on your the subcultures you live in, depending on where you are in the world and things like that.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, we live in a world where especially here in the U.S. and even in some of the worst areas, there's still a layer of that cover up of that underbelly, right? Like it's not always so open, you know.
Mhm.
And letting them know that there are bad people, and that there is a way to deal with it, and we can deal with it together. If you're ever uncomfortable, you always trust that uncomfortable. And one thing, like, uh I think this is another huge, I sorry to go off on a rant on it, but
No, no, man, you're good.
a huge aspect of this is, one day my daughter told me, she said something, she said, what? She's like, what is this? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, what do you mean you don't know? You're an adult, you know everything. I said, oh, let me clear that up right now.
Uh-huh.
Adults don't know anything. Everybody's just playing a game and they're pretending to get along, you know.
Mhm.
But really what I said, you know, like, hey, you know, adults don't know everything. There are a lot of people out there who are adults that don't know anything. So you don't have to trust adults. You have to trust the people that you know, and that we tell you can trust. Everybody else, don't listen to them, you know. I don't care if it's, even if it's your teacher, if your teacher is saying something that you don't feel comfortable with, do not do it. I don't care what it is.
Right.
We'll deal with the consequences together. But if you feel uncomfortable, you trust what that is, you know. And
Mhm.
I don't say it is so direct. It's a 5-year-old, you know, but like,
Right.
you have to tailor it to your audience. But that's the general message: is like, if you're uncomfortable, you don't have to do anything. I don't care what whoever says the consequence is. I'll deal with the consequence for you. We'll deal with it together, and we'll, you know, it's like, you have to calibrate your situational awareness. You can't be super lax. You can't be you know, running around in circles, forward shoulder
Mhm.
roll across the street. You have to be somewhere in the middle. So we'll adjust and we'll find where that needle hits center. Okay.
Right.
I think that's kind of the best way I can put it.
Absolutely. And you said a word that I really appreciated you saying, and that was innocence. And I think a lot of parents are afraid to tell their kids that there are bad people in the world because they don't want to destroy that innocence. And us as parents, we can either educate our children so they grow up out of their innocence, or we can have somebody else break it for them. And
Right.
what
Right.
would we rather what would we rather do? And I'm pretty
Exactly.
sure we need to be the ones to tell them.
Yes. And you can use simple things like when we use, what was the movie? There was a movie, it was a Disney movie, and it's like, why is this person a bad guy? I'm like, well, he's trying to kidnap the princess. Oh, one of the best ones, King Koopa. You know, she's like, why is
Mhm.
King Koopa stealing the princess? I'm like, because he's a bad guy. He's trying to take her because he wants whatever she has. You know, and that's bad. That's a bad guy. He wants to do bad things. You know, so
Mhm.
utilizing, like, you can use their favorite Disney movie. Every Disney movie's got a bad guy who murdered somebody's parents. I mean, so you can, it's pretty easy to use
Right.
as an example. You know,
Mhm.
so whatever, you know, there's always a bad guy in Paw Patrol or whatever, and
Right.
you can use that as a reference. It's not like they're out there, like, you know, whatever, murdering people or whatever, but you
Mhm.
can use that as a reference and saying, look, what he did there was not okay. You know, we use it for littering, you know, because
Mhm.
I never throw trash on the ground. I always will hold it until I get to wherever I want. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, why would I'm just that lazy. I can't just put this trash in my
Mhm.
pocket for like
Right.
10 minutes, you know? So now every time she sees it, she goes, somebody left trash on the ground, Dad. I'm like, okay, well, what should we do about this? You know, it's the same idea. You just, you know, tailor it to your child, and then you find a way to facilitate that message in a way that interacts with their level of maturity, you know? And I know it sounds very vague to say something like that. It's like, yeah, that's easy, but it's not a step-by-step process. It's a trial and error. You have to, sometimes you have to go through the ringer of 900 questions on why is
Oh
he a
yeah,
bad guy, or why
right.
doesn't he do this? I'm like, well, he's greedy. What's greedy? Okay, well, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've stumbled down that staircase before. Yeah, then you're. Let me tell you about Machiavelli, and then you have to go from there. No, but yeah, it's and I hear you. It's really you know your kid the best, so you know what they're ready for and what they're not ready for, and you also know what's going on in your community, what's going on in your area, what's just made the news, and what's the stuff that we really need to talk about. Well, Chris, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do on your Instagram page. I appreciate what you do on your website. The series that you did on online predators was absolutely awesome. So where can people find that?
Yeah, so that's available on my YouTube. I don't remember the exact handle off the top of my head. But actually I have a on my website, stayingsafellc.com. I have a list of videos. I have a tab that shows all the video series and everything like that. I also have on my Instagram, staying safe underscore self defense. Um, I have a link tree in there that'll bring you to my website, and it'll have a link tree for all kinds of stuff within there. Sometimes I put links to other posts and stuff or background information on links to posts and stuff like that. But the best place to find all my consolidated info is either my Instagram or my website.
Very good, man. I appreciate your time, buddy. You be well.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on.